Hi guys, my name is Kirsty and welcome back to Upside Down Books and welcome to my TBR Jar explanation video.
Non più tra i farfalloni amoroso, notte giorno di
So I've been meaning to do this for the longest of times, to actually sit down and do a video to explain how my TBR jars actually work. So if you're new here, then you may not know that I have a TBR jar system, which is how I select which books I'll be reading next. TBR stands for to be read, and I have many books. In fact, at this point when I'm setting this up, I have over 300 books that I own and need to read. Yes, I have that many books. It's a lot of books. So I wanted to explain how the system works because it has been about a year since I started this and I've still not done an explanation video. I'm sure some of you are a little bit lost. So the way that I do it is I have basically adapted and built upon the typical standard TBR jar structure. So usually the TBR jar, you have a jar with your TBR in it and you pick one out or however many you want to, and that sort of dictates what you read next. Basically, it's to help you pick what you read next without being biased and to keep selecting certain genres or keep avoiding certain books. And with the number of books I have, I need to do this. However, I found this system didn't quite work for me because I would pick out such a random selection of books and it wasn't very conducive to a really fun month of reading. So what I've done is I have split it into 5 different jars or mugs, as I have mugs, and these are done by categories. So these are the 5 categories that I have. First of all, I have an ARCS jar. So this stands for Advanced Reader Copies. I have a lot of unsolicited copies that have been sent to me that I haven't specifically requested that I keep separate from the rest of my books because I do still really want to read them one day. I'll admit some of them are books I've requested and I've just not got around to because life happens. So I have a specific ARC jar to try and tackle this issue and get through some of this backlog that I have waiting in the wings to be read. I then have my diversity jar, and in this one I have a very broad definition of diversity. A lot of diversity right now is focused around Black authors, BIPOC authors, character stories, etc, which of course is included in here, but I also want to make sure I'm capturing the entire image of diversity. So this jar is focusing on experiences that are different to my own and that I can learn from. So this ranges from having BIPOC authors to simply having books about mental health or non-fiction or are informative and are diversifying my knowledge of the world, my understanding of the world, and the way that I interact with other people in society. So this jar is essentially trying to broaden my mind and make sure that my reading is challenging the way I think constantly, and make sure that I'm not stuck in any particular circle reading particular things written by particular people. So this is my diversity jar. I then have my sequels and prequels jar. So this one has mostly sequels and a few prequels in here, and that I think is relatively self-explanatory. I am an absolute chronic non-finisher when it comes to reading series, so I wanted to create a jar where I would make sure that every month I was having at least one book on my TBR that was the next book in a series that I am reading, and it has been really helpful to making sure I progress through some series. I then have my presents jar, and so what I do with my presents jar is at Christmases and birthdays I get a lot of books as presents given that I love them so much, and something that really bothers me is when I get given gifts and the next Christmas or birthday rolls around and I've still not read what they gave me the previous year. I feel really guilty. So I created a presents jar, and that helps me to try and make sure that I am getting through things that people have given to me to show that I am respecting and appreciating the fact that I have been given these books by friends and family. And that brings me to my 5th jar, which is my backlist. So this is just everything else. So this is my biggest jar by far, and it has anything from classics to sci-fi to non-fiction, you name it. This is a real mystery as to what comes out of this jar, but it's basically just anything that doesn't fit into the rest of them. I could have split it up into genres, but that just felt like it was getting a little bit too much. So that is the basics of how my TBR jar works and what the structure is, and then I have a couple of other rules. The main rule that I've been adhering to is I have to read at least the first 50 pages of every book that I try. There are some books on here that I am not so excited to read, but I want to make sure that I am still trying and giving them a fair go. So it's 50 pages, and if I don't like it at 50 pages, then I'm just going to DNF it. Life is too short to persevere with books that I don't love. One other rule I have is that if I pick out a TBR and I don't read through all of it, which is nearly 100% of the time, I won't make my way the entire way through the TBR that I've picked, then anything I don't get around to becomes a priority when it's picked again. So this means that if it's picked in a new TBR and just one of those books is one that has been picked previously, I have to read that one first in that new month. So those are the main rules that I will be adhering to as months come and go. I may add different rules for the months. Maybe if I pick out a particularly big book and it's a particularly busy month, I might pick less, but we will deal with that on a month-to-month basis. These are just the basic rules. Overall, I will be picking 6 books for my TBR every month. I have the capacity to read about 8 books when I'm having a good reading month. So I'm hoping that this means it gives me time to read the 6 books I select and a couple of others. Maybe those are some other review copies, or maybe it's diving into more of my backlist. We will see. So So obviously I have 5 jars, but I'm picking 6 books. So there is 1 jar I will be picking twice from. Now I'm going to leave this up to me month by month as to which one I pick twice from. I think I previously have always gone with one that I picked 2 out of, but I'm not going to put the pressure on me. I'm going to see what I feel needs more prioritizing, whether it's arcs, presents, the backlist, you name it. I will select 1 jar every month that I'll be picking more out of. So that is how my TBR jar works. Thanks for tuning in and having a listen, and enjoy watching my TBR jar videos. Goodbye.
Alle gloria militar.